Hello, Bobby Phillips here. Today I'm going to review Chapter 1 with you since it's the beginning of the term and since we really did not have time to do lecture this week. I will review Chapters 1 and 2 via these videos. So you should have read Chapter 1 in your book. I will be discussing here Chapter 1 and adding hopefully some definitions, some explanation. Hopefully I can make the material flow for you so it engages your brain a little bit more. I hesitate to say the word engagement because you're sitting there looking at a screen versus sitting in class. So realize that's why we have a hybrid class. But here, let's go. We're going to learn briefly about some of those things that Americans eat and how their habits have changed a bit over the years and why we care what this has to do with health. And we'll lead into a discussion of nutrient density, a word that should be rolling off your tongue by the end of the term. So, it's all about the food. We should eat more fruits and vegetables. When we consume grains, they should be whole grains. Why don't we focus on the healthier fats, olive oil, walnut oil, some of these things? We should consume 2 servings of seafood a week. Less sugar. Chef Chris and I have a debate. Less salt. He calls me the salt Nazi, and I can own that. We shouldn't consume so much processed foods. I'll introduce a word I made up and I would like you to consider. So, why do we care? Because heart disease, cancer, and stroke cause half of the deaths in America. Yeah, there are accidents and alcoholism and substance abuse. But look at the number 1 killers: heart disease, cancer, and stroke. All of them impacted by nutrition. Inactivity. We're not moving our bodies or fueling our bodies. So, here you go. This is the numbers. Heart disease is still the number 1 killer after 20-some years. Been doing this almost 25 years now, and it's astounding that nothing has really changed. So, what are Americans eating? What are we doing? Well, we're not doing what I just outlined. Only 15% of Americans are consuming enough whole grains. It's kind of surprising to me that almost 60% consume enough fruit or vegetables, but not fruits. If you look at these numbers here, look, this is what we're supposed to eat, the goal. This is what we're eating. So look at fiber. Only 40% of Americans consume enough fiber. It's dismal. Look at what we are eating. SOFAs. Solid fat and added sugar. We abbreviate those SOFAs. We're sitting on the sofa eating solid fat and added sugar. Guys, here's the word I made up. Cellophane food. We're consuming processed foods. Sorry about that. We're not consuming whole grains. We're consuming refined grains. Here we go, Chef Chris. That's the number. We're 100 and almost 50% over. That's how many of us are consuming over the amount of sodium we should consume. And there's the SOFA number again, solid fats. So, what do we do about this in nutrition circles? Do chefs, the future food service industry, have an opportunity? Well, absolutely. In 2010, it was actually not till June of 2011 these were published, but the dietary guidelines are updated every 5 years, and these were the ones that came out in 2010. There's a link in your Moodle environment. I strongly suggest that you look at those. These are outlined further in Chapter 2, but let's start with a brief introduction. 4 broad categories. Balancing your calories to manage weight. We have about 30% of Americans overweight right now in America, And that's problematic. It's going to impact the healthcare system big time. The estimate is that fully half of America will be overweight or obese by the year 2020. We need to talk about sodium. We are consuming way too much. We consume too much sodium and too much fat. We need to eat more fruits and vegetables. These are exactly what I just described, and the USDA spelled this out for us. We need to be more physically active. Yes, this is a nutrition class, but we need to fuel our body's needs for our energy needs, our needs for activity. So what the dietary guidelines did and this leads us into choosemyplate.gov in lieu of the food guide pyramid, we're breaking foods down into groups. So as we go along, you should know what a serving of fruit is. It's a cup, obviously half a cup if it's dried. It's a cup of vegetables. What we're going to be doing is saying, okay, well, how many vegetables do I need? How many fruits do I need? Turns out you need about 2 to 3 servings of fruit a day. You need about 3 vegetables plus per day, a cup. Grains go by the ounce, and this is astounding to some of us who see 4-ounce bagels in the marketplace. One slice of bread, half of a bagel or less, is a serving. So, one of those Mondo bagels is 4 servings of grains. Men need about 8 to 10, women roughly 6. We get too many. The protein group. Americans consume double the amount of protein they need. Your textbook authors and I disagree on this point. I believe they say 20% more than we need. As we go along in this course, I think you'll agree with me. We consume double. Dairy, a serving is 1 cup. This is not what we've been talking about. This is, again, what I refer to as cellophane food. Added sofas. Look at all the sofas. Fried chicken, bacon. Look at the added calories, the alcohol, the sugar, the fat. This is instead what the dietary guidelines are getting at. Instead of the pyramid, we have choosemyplate.gov, where you see grains are in check, protein is in check, more vegetables, and don't forget the dairy group. So why aren't we doing more? It takes too much time. It's too hard. I'm happy with the way I eat. Give me some practical tips. Why isn't this sexy? This doesn't look like the woman on the Carl's Jr. ad. So here's fats. Why isn't this? And fats, by the way, is only about 2 tablespoons per day. Why isn't this what Americans want to choose? I don't see any marketing campaigns for a superfood like blueberries. Yes, we can have a serving of wine, 4 ounces per day, not saved up for Friday night. Men, 1 to 2. But the idea here, as we'll talk about in a minute, is phytochemicals. So, taste trumps nutrition when we're out dining. We may choose a healthy restaurant in hopes we'll eat better, but when we get out there, taste matters. Cost. Can we all relate to this in this economy and in this marketplace? Yes, it does matter. Convenience. Easy. We're students. We have busy lifestyles. We don't have time. Well, who cares about all this stuff? Turns out mostly women. People who are 45 to 64, I'm right in the middle, we are more health conscious. This is a lot of your instructors. Women care the most. Turns out, and it's tragic, that college-educated people place more importance on nutrition. Socioeconomic status is indeed related to health, not only health care, but habits and attitudes about food choices and exercise. It's a trend we need to correct. We need to have some sense of equality, and consumers at all spectrum of the socioeconomic ladder need to have access to not only nutrition education, but healthy foods and healthcare. Marketing. We sell sugary, sweetened cereals to children. Children sit in front of the television too much. They play video games too much, and they're exposed to advertising. We should be eating for that happy social interaction. There's broccoli, one of the superfoods. These are my thoughts. So our textbook reviews cost, convenience, education, marketing, and so on. From previous courses I've taught and from nearly 25 years of experience, I will tell you personal preference has to be factored in. Fast food is addictive. I spent a day at OSU at a conference about food addictions. Dopamine. Dopamine is the happy chemical in your brain. It makes you happy. Well, when you eat highly palatable foods, I take exception to that word, but processed, high fat, high sugar, high sodium foods, your dopamine level increases. Your dopamine level also increases with drugs and alcohol. We eat for emotional comfort. If we don't address that, we're missing an opportunity. Regions of the country, values, and beliefs. We need to shift towards health. In the past 5 years, the choices have changed somewhat. We need to look at the nutrients in our food to address this. These are the nutrients your book spells out for you. Be able to calculate how many calories come from carbohydrates. So if you had 1 gram of carbohydrate, you'd have 4 calories. If you had 2 grams of carbohydrate, you'd have 8. So 2 times 4 is 8. If you had 2 grams of fat, you'd have 18 calories. So what does this matter to us? Well, a calorie is a unit of energy, and this is what your calories are used for. Your book explains that more. We have to achieve calorie balance. That's the problem. We don't. Here's how many calories an average person needs. We will learn more about how to do that in class. So, we need to focus on nutrient-dense foods. Nutrient-dense foods are the healthy version of a food. They contain more phytochemicals. We'll talk about that more. They contain less fat, sugar, and salt. It's the most healthy version of that food. Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, eggs, nuts, without sulfas. They're full of phytochemicals. Phytochemicals are that unknown. No, you don't need to understand this slide. What this slide is getting at is there's all sorts of antioxidants, lycopenes, phenols, polyphenols, anthocyanins, anthocyanins, all these compounds that we just don't. What? In the middle of the slide, it says what? We don't know exactly what they do. And we don't know how they do it. But the chemical in food that we can't seem to get our hands on, these phytochemicals, they interrupt and reduce our risk for disease like cancer, aging. So we get them from foods like this. Are you seeing a trend here? Not foods like this, cellophane food. All sorts of compounds are in colorful foods. Compounds that contribute to health. Colorful foods. So, nutrient density is what we're trying to boost. In your term project, you're going to see this. You're going to pump up the flavor and the nutrient density of a recipe. This is a typical family and what they consume. Not a lot of fruits and vegetables there. And some of these images are a bit blurry, but I think you get the point. We don't eat what we should eat. It's confusing. Portion distortion exists. I think we have to talk about the white elephant in the room, which is childhood obesity. We're trying to prevent that. There's an opportunity for chefs and dietitians to work together. In your book, it describes this. Be aware of what an RD is. A bachelor's degree, an internship, passing an exam, continuing education. I think we as culinary professionals, as nutrition professionals, have an opportunity, obligation to do more to improve health through nutrition.